morning, everybody. Happy Friday, and thanks so much for joining us here on 13 News Now Plus or on YouTube for live Impact News. My name's Marta Berglund. I am once again filling in for Eugene. We've got producer Sarah Calloway with us. We've got meteorologist Craig Moeller. And just as a forewarning, we are going to be talking a lot about weather today because that is, of course, the big headline across the country as millions of people are bracing for this storm that is going to head across our way over the next few days. So, of course, we had to bring the expert in. One of our many experts here, meteorologist Craig Moeller, for the latest track on the storm. And it's kind of changed, Craig, over the past few days. Every morning it feels like you all get in and it's like, oh, time to adjust.
So what we want to make abundantly clear, winter storms still very much on track. The specific impacts have been changing a little bit. And Marta, I guess that's one of the benefits or one of the pitfalls of sharing the office with the weather department. Yeah. Marta always gets to hear about it as we're prepping for daybreak, exactly what's going on. Would you look at this? How about that? You know, you always get those conversations. But what's going on right now, starting Monday, you know, we called this weather impact alert for this upcoming weekend. This storm has been well advertised by our guidance and our longer range modeling, so we knew that this was coming in. Initially, it looked like a lot of snow. Now it looks like we're going to see a mix of things. So we've been talking about that, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up our winter storm watch and let you see just how much Virginia right now under a winter storm watch. As we take a closer look at this map, you can see those areas shaded in pink out to the west. Western parts of Virginia now under winter storm warning, along with the northern part of the Commonwealth. And we'll get into this and show you that is a change just recently as the impacts from this are getting closer to us. So let's take a little, whoa, the map went the other way. Hang on a second. We'll go ahead and bring this up and then zoom in and take a closer look at some of these areas. Down to the south, ice warnings. That's a concern across Mississippi. You can see from north of Jackson there up through Tupelo and into southern Tennessee. Also, northeast Georgia there, north of Athens and extending back into South Carolina, now under ice warning, ice storm warning. Same thing for western portions of North Carolina there, ice storm warnings. Earlier we talked to one of my colleagues, Chris Mulcahy, down in Charlotte about how they are preparing for probably the biggest ice storm, or the most significant storm that they've had like this since 2018, I think he said. So it's been, 8 years since they've dealt with this. Now, as you can see in northern Virginia, we do have this area now under winter storm warning. That includes D.C. and Baltimore up through Maryland there, all of West Virginia now included. And this western part of Virginia and North Carolina now under warning. That's because the onset of this will begin within that 24-hour or so period. I think we're looking, and it can go out to 36 hours. Sometimes the Weather Service will call the warning. I expect these areas shaded in blue for Hampton Roads to go pink under winter storm warning this afternoon. So we will eventually get that here. Right now, still a winter storm watch, and that's for southeast Virginia and interior portions of northeast North Carolina. It does not include right now Perquimans, Pasquotank, Currituck, or Camden, and then areas down to the south, Washington, Terrell, and Dare counties in eastern North Carolina, not under the winter storm watch. And that's because while they start off with a little bit of snow, it's mainly going to transition to rain. The winter storm watch, which will go to warning, accounts for not only snow, but sleet and freezing rain as well. So what can you expect? Let's take a look at our kind of winter storm headlines. Arctic air arrives tonight. It is going to be bone-chilling. Temperatures down into the teens and low 20s across the area. Wind chills are going to be in the single digits, and in some cases, we may have below zero wind chills. Talking about places up around Tappahannock, maybe Williamsburg, some of these areas up towards Richmond could see wind chills below zero. So the gusty winds tonight and into tomorrow, pretty blustery as well. A much chillier day, temperatures in the upper 20s to low 30s across the region. Snow arrives tomorrow evening. It's going to be widespread across our viewing area in southeast Virginia, northeast North Carolina. And then we're going to see the snow transition to mix and then rain on Sunday. So how about it? Let's give you some more details here. Again, the 3 things you need to know. The brutal cold arrives tonight. Tomorrow, snow widespread by Saturday evening. We'll look for that transition from the southeast early, probably pre-sunrise on Sunday. We'll start to see a mix or change over to freezing rain and sleet. And then we're going to see it transition later in the day. That rain-snow line or the mix rain line is going to move farther and farther north and west and spread as warmer air comes in. All right, as we take a look at the satellite and the radar images right now, things are quiet till you get down into southern parts of North Carolina. Some rain showers there. More rain down across New Mexico and Texas. The cold air, it is still off to our northwest, but it's coming in. We had one front slide through yesterday. That's well to our south. Yesterday's high was 60 degrees, guys. Did you take advantage of it? Did you get preps done around your house?
I did, and I went outside because I was like, I know this is going to be fleeting. This is my last chance to get out in the sun and enjoy it while we still can.
Yeah, it was 60 yesterday, so very, very pleasant. Great. Today, we're going to be in the upper 40s, close to 50. That is close to normal. So much colder, but not dramatically cold. The dramatically cold air is behind that next blue line there, that next cold front, and you see the high pressure set to build in behind it. That cold air will advance and settle into our region, setting the stage for the wintry precipitation. Now, we take a look here at the snow that is going to develop late Saturday. This is the GFS model, and we're going to show you the graph model here. Our higher res models really do a good job of timing it out. But I just wanted to show you how our global models are really lining up very consistent now. Snow heaviest to the north of us, but we're going to get our share of snow Saturday night into early Sunday here as well. And then that mix transitioning to rain, still more freezing rain and sleet potentially out to the west. And we're going to talk about the differences between sleet and freezing rain coming up here in just a couple moments. But giving you the big picture, you can see the wintry precip with the Euro, same deal. Saturday night, the snow starts. Then we get the mix, the cold air wedged in between the coast and the mountains there. That's why you get that freezing rain continuing through the day on Sunday for those inland areas. And that's why they have the ice storm warning down for Charlotte. We've got winter storm warnings that'll be in place here, and we'll see eventually some rain mixing in. All of this should leave around midday on Monday. All right, let's talk about the cold weather advisory. Marta, you enjoyed that 60 yesterday. How do you feel about these wind chills tomorrow morning?
I'll be inside, hopefully.
Yeah, not
they're not
feeling
great.
good. As long as you've got your dog Linus and your fiance, you guys can all cuddle
Hunker
up,
down,
stay warm.
yeah.
You got your rabbit there that you can keep warm with. What's a bunny's name?
Squish.
Squish, yeah. Squish and Linus and Marta, they're all set up. All right, here are the wind chills. If you're going to be out and about, I really, really advise you avoid any prolonged exposure to wind chills. They get down into the single digits and certainly below zero. Richmond, Tappahannock, these areas up around Accomack, maybe even Gloucester, Williamsburg, Cape Charles. Bitter cold wind chills because the winds are still going to be gusting coming in, and those north winds really setting up dangerous cold tomorrow morning. All right, as we go forward, what we're going to find, again, very cold conditions through the day on Saturday. Wind chills eventually will warm back into the double digits, and we're going to see it feeling like it's in the teens through the afternoon. Still really cold. Let's talk snow potential. Here you go. Now, the GFS early this week, and I was showing these models at different times, and I said, hey, they were going crazy early in the week. We said that was the case, said, they'll likely modify a little bit, and they have. But you can see the GFS still calling for 2 to 3 inches of snow for Norfolk, Virginia Beach, down across Chesapeake. More off to the west, you can see Suffolk and back up towards Newport News, some heavier amounts up around New Kent, and you get up towards West Point, very heavy snow up that way, north of the area, Tappahannock, Richmond, those areas. Euro also has some more coming in. All right, we're going to talk more about the ice potential, and we'll talk about our official forecast in just a minute. I understand we've got a live press conference. Is that right?
Sort of.
Oh,
Press conference
okay.
for us. Yeah. Thank you, Craig. And we'll talk more about the forecast in just a few minutes. He is going to stick around. Right now, we have Sergeant Jessica Sheehan with Virginia State Police who's going to join us. She's going to talk a little bit about the preparations underway for Virginia State Police, of course, for the Virginia Department of Transportation as well. So, Sergeant Sheehan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me today. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thank you. So, obviously, we have this impending storm coming in. From Virginia State Police's perspective, what is the main priority when it comes to preparing?
When it comes to preparing, we're actively monitoring the roadway conditions, and we have all of our troopers on 12-hour shifts right now to make sure that we're avoiding unnecessary crashes and monitoring the roadways and the and everything that's going on leading up to this storm. We are asking that everyone get everything that they need today and just stay home Saturday and Sunday. There is absolutely no need for anybody to be out this weekend in the storm. So we're asking everybody to please just stay home. Do not come out in it.
Mm-hmm. But inevitably, I think there will be some people that head out the door. In the case that they do have to drive or they make that choice, what should they do to stay extra safe?
Yeah, so if you do decide that you have to go out, if there's an emergency or whatever, just make sure you're using your headlights. Make sure you clear all snow and ice off of your vehicle, including the roof, to prevent it from obstructing your view or making other hazards. Slow down and drive for the conditions. Make sure you're driving really slow. Reduce speeds to help with your reaction time. And don't tailgate. Make sure you're providing enough stopping distance for between you and vehicles that are in front of you. And always buckle up. Make sure you're wearing your seatbelt. You'd be amazed at the amount of people that still do not wear their seatbelts today. And check your vehicle before you get in it. Make sure your tires look good. That's a big thing right now. Make sure you're checking your tires. You do not need to be on snow and ice with slick tires. Your windshield wipers are working, battery fluids are in good working order, and that you have enough gas. And and just in case your car does break down, it's not a bad idea to have a little emergency go kit with you. Window scraper, blanket, bottled water, snacks, flashlight, even a spare phone charger, just to help keep you warm and safe until one of us can get to you, because we might have a extended time getting to someone who's broken down during this storm.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned, obviously visibility is going to be an issue with the snow. We're also watching for ice to develop. Does Virginia State Police's approach change at all when the precipitation type does? Excuse me.
Yeah, like I said earlier, like we move to 12-hour shifts. We bring more people out. We have more troopers out. We're actively monitoring the roadway conditions. We're working with all of our partners from VDEM, VDOT, all the way our local jurisdictions, making sure that everything looks good and safe for everybody before they go out, if they do have to travel.
Sergeant Sheehan, this is Craig Moeller here joining Marta. Quick question for you. It gets bad enough when roads are wet. You think about the dangers when you have somebody maybe responding to an issue on the side of the road. How much do we need to stress that folks give the patrol and everybody as much room as possible to work, maybe slow down and creep by or get farther over? What would you say to our viewers?
Yes. 100%. So that's a big thing right now. Our move over law is a big deal anyway, but during the snow, make sure you're giving enough room for snow plows, our VDOT workers, trucks, people who are out there doing their job so that people can get to and from safely. Make sure you're slowing down if you can't get over, but make sure you slow down and move over and give them enough room so that they can do their job nice and safe. That's huge.
Definitely. You mentioned 12-hour shifts. Have those already begun?
Yes, we are moving to those as the storm approaches, just so that we can help prevent those unnecessary crashes and get to people quickly.
Well, we certainly appreciate you guys giving the time. Talk to me about how, the shifts change, the workload changes as the storm arrives.
Yeah, so naturally it's going to be a lot more. It's going to pickup. There's going to be a lot of crashes. Ultimately, there are going to be people that travel, even though we ask them repeatedly, please stay home, please stay home. So our troopers are going to be out there in it. They're going to be taking the brunt of that work. They're going to be the ones that are going out there to people that are broken down, that are getting into these crashes, that are potentially injured and things like that. So they are the true first responders. Going to people in these times when there's these horrible storms come up. So we need more people out on the roadways. So that's what we do. We step up and we go out and we go to work.
How about this for motorists that are going, if there's an issue, how do they contact the highway patrol if they come up on something? I mean, there are certain situations where you call 911. There are other ones that they may want to contact the state highway patrol. What's your advice on that?
Yeah, you can always dial 911. Whatever cell phone tower you're at nearest to will take you to your local jurisdiction. But if you dial #77 from a cell phone, that'll take you directly to the state police. So anytime you dial #77, that'll take you straight to our dispatch, no matter where you're at in the state.
Well, thank you so much, Sergeant Sheehan. Before we let you go, I know you mentioned having an emergency kit and the safety measures to take while driving. Is there anything you want to pass along to people about preparing their vehicles ahead of time?
Yeah, just make sure you're checking your vehicle before you're traveling. Make sure your tires are good. Make sure you've got good windshield wipers. Everything looks good before you go out. If you go out in your car that the tires are slick, you're not going to make it very far in ice. So make sure everything looks good before you get your vehicle.
All right. Thank you so much, Sergeant Sheehan. Once again, we appreciate you taking the time, and stay safe out there.
Thank you. Thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak today. So I really do appreciate it. And you guys stay safe as well.
All right. Thanks so much. So we want to get the latest on the forecast as much as we can, Craig. I think she made some really good points about, the difference between driving in snow versus ice versus sleet versus freezing rain. And it sounds like we could see all of those.
Yeah, we're going to break down what the differences are. One of the things I want to really stress here, and we just heard her talk about having a preparedness kit or an emergency kit in the car. Think about throwing in a few extra non-perishables that you could eat as well. And I bring this up, and Sarah, you may remember specifically, I'm not sure exactly how long ago it was, but there was an accident a few years ago on I-95 where motorists were literally stuck on the road for, 8 to 12 hours or something. In some cases, it may have even been longer than that because it was such a bad accident they couldn't access it to clear it. And it literally can turn some roads into parking lots, and there are no resources around. There's not like it seems like there's a Starbucks on every corner, but there isn't really. I mean, you may have to just kind of rely on what you have in your car. So during winter travel, again, if you can avoid it during these peak kind of trouble times with the most active weather, that's always the advice. But even going after that, with the roads being messy, you better have some provisions just in case. It may not be anything your car's involved with. It could be an accident up a little bit ahead of you, a mile or two up or whatever. But if you're stuck out there, you could be stuck out there for a long time. So I think that's a significant thing for folks to keep in mind. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about the forecast confidence, okay? And this is a meter that we use, and I am feeling really good about this forecast in general. As far as precipitation types go, and you can see on the map there, we're talking about snow, mix, sleet, freezing rain, and rain all in play. I'm going to talk about the differences between freezing rain and sleet here in just a second, okay? But everything is on the table with this event for Hampton Roads. Snow total forecast, we're getting increasingly confident. I'm going to show you our 13 News Now weather team snow forecast, what we're putting out now as a team. Feeling good about it because the models, all the guidance starting to line up. We've got a pretty good handle on this. Storm timing, high confidence. It's always been high because the timing has not changed. It's been very consistent for a long time. So let's talk about those snow totals. And as you can see, we're looking at 6 to 8 inches or more across the northernmost parts of the area. Tappahannock, Richmond, Farmville, Lynchburg, potentially very heavy snow. We were on with Caitlin McGrath from up at WUSA up in D.C., and they're looking in some places. I think she had up to 14 inches of snow across the extreme northern parts of the Commonwealth into portions of Maryland and West Virginia. So very, very heavy snow up that way. Of course, as you come closer to the coast and down to the south, the amounts aren't as impressive, but still a decent snow. 3 to 6 inches expected for the peninsula, the middle peninsula, maybe even southern parts of Accomack County there. And I'd say for Norfolk, I'm still expecting around 3 to 3.5, maybe 4 inches. We were talking about this Monday, and just half jokingly, when the models were going, 16, 17, 18 inches, Marta asked me, I was like, 3.5. By the time things mix in and the models kind of come into a clearer picture, and that's kind of where the models are trending right now. So we'll see. But I'd say anyway, a good healthy 1 to 3, maybe some locally higher amounts. And the snowfall may be a little bit more than that overnight, but with rain mixing in and sleet kind of eventually bringing down those totals, we may wake up to slightly lower amounts down to the ground. Now, or down when we wake up and step outside on the ground is what I'm trying to say. Down into North Carolina, up to an inch or so, but there's going to be that earlier change to sleet and ice and rain. I'll stress this onset of this snow is still over a day away. So we've got about 30 hours, 30 to 35, 36 hours out from the start of this. It is important that you keep looking for updates. Our snow window really between, say, 6:30 or 7 out to the west, but for the metro area, 8 to, say, 3 a.m., 3:30, that's the best chances. Now, ice is another potential issue, and we could see some significant ice out to the west, especially towards I-95, and we've been talking about that and the possibility of heavy sleet and freezing rain. Now, I don't know if Sarah has the graphic that we can take, but one of our sister stations down at WCNC in Charlotte, Brad Panovich, put this out, and Chris Malahy I think they enhanced this, and we're sharing this a little bit. The difference between freezing rain and sleet, you can think of freezing rain kind of glazing the donut there. It clings to everything, kind of wraps around, and basically it's liquid rain that falls and freezes on contact with surfaces below 32 degrees. That can be branches where you get, this kind of coating and caking of the liquid that freezes on contact. It just, I always think of it also kind of like a layer of paint. You keep, you've got that thicker coat of paint that just kind of eventually hardens around whatever object it falls on, all right? Sleet is more like sprinkles, okay? Some of them, hit the surfaces and they're frozen. They're ice pellets, little tiny ice pellets, and they kind of bounce on impact. So you've got your sleet or sprinkle donut, and then you've got your freezing rain, which is your glazed donut. I think that makes sense. Now, how does all of this form? Let's come back to our graphics here, because with snow, you've got a cold air mass throughout the entire column of air. Snow falls aloft. It's super cold up high in the atmosphere. As that cold air, extends all the way down to the ground, it's cold enough to support snow. Obviously, you're going to have snow that makes it all the way down to the ground. That's if the moisture is high enough down low level. If it's too dry, what do we get? Anybody know? If it evaporates before it makes down?
Hail?
No.
I know.
Starts with a V.
I know. Sorry, I got really excited. She's like working. It's called Virga.
Virga, very good. Yes. So sometimes snow can fall aloft, and if it's too dry, low levels too dry, it evaporates or sublimates, where it goes from a solid state to gas before making it down to the ground. All right. Now, what happens if we get some warmer air kind of nosing in at the mid-levels? If we get a warm layer, and this typically, in this case, we were looking at about 850 millibars. That's up about 5,000 feet. You can have, depending on how thick that warm layer is, that kind of gets wedged into all this cold air. We know the cold air is going to be in place. We talked about how chilly it's going to be Saturday. Initially, cold enough to support the snow. But as we get into Sunday morning and more air starts coming in off the ocean, we get a little warm layer pushing into our area. It may be snow that melts, then refreezes before it hits the ground. So once it melts, starts to become a raindrop, then refreezes into a little tiny ice pellet. That's the sleet or the sprinkles we just showed you on the donut. Now that sleet can fall and sometimes accumulate. People will sometimes say, hey, it's hailing. It's not hailing. Hail is a different process where you've got violent winds up and down in a thunderstorm. That is not what happens. What you do have are little raindrops that freeze solid, so they're little tiny chunks of ice that fall to the ground. And I love what Hunter Force has been saying, sleet has a beat. I've been doing this since it seems like the dawn of time, but in all my years of doing broadcast meteorology, I never thought about it. Sleet has a beat. If you hear what sounds like a little, what do they call the drumsticks that are kind of frayed out a little bit and it hits like the snare, you get a little, that is sleet. Sleet's got a beat. All right, now, if that air mass, that 850 millibar kind of layer, that warm layer is thick enough, if it's warm enough there and it extends farther to the ground, you could find that rain or the snow that falls changes over to rain and it doesn't have time to turn back to ice. So what happens is that snow that fell aloft changes into rain. It keeps falling, but the ground is still sub-freezing. And if there's a very shallow cold air layer near the ground, that rain hits those frozen surfaces and freezes on contact. That is freezing rain, and that is our most dangerous type of winter precipitation, and that's where we have the potential for a lot of ice. In some cases, as Chris was telling us out in Charlotte, they were actually expecting kind of a layer of freezing rain, then a change over to sleet, then back to freezing rain, where they could have a coating and then maybe let's say maybe a 1/4 inch of sleet pellets building up and then a coating of freezing rain on top of it. You get into that, and again, it basically turns, the roads into an icy, almost like a skating rink. It's really bad. Now, accumulations of ice and the impacts. You get a 1/4 inch or less, you want to stay off the roads, avoid unnecessary travel. You get some light ice on trees and scattered power outages. That's an issue. When it's a 1/4 to 1/2 inch, icy roads, broken tree limbs, numerous power outages. But the next thing, and I don't know why my graphic just locked up on me right there. It's going to come back to us here in a second. It's going to show you this one more time. I'm just going to pull it over to the end here. The last thing, a 1/2 inch or more, that's where the roads become dangerous or potentially impassable in some cases, and widespread tree damage and those longer-term power outages are also possible. So all of this stuff, very possible. I'm going to show you again that the ice potential from the Euro. We'll take a look at that. And then I'm going to show you a different look with the graph model, another model. But you could see that out towards Emporia or maybe up towards Richmond, you could have over 1/2 inch. Tappahannock, West Point, almost 1/2 inch if the graph model is correct here. There's a Hosky also with a lot. Here's a different look. And again, you see with the graph out across, or that's the Euro rather, I'm sorry. Here's the graph model for the entire region. And you get a feel for some of the heavier amounts of ice potentially out to the west. Up to the north, Lynchburg, back towards Charlottesville, you could see over 1/2 inch. So some of those mountainous areas, Blacksburg, think about the Hokies out there, caked in ice potentially. A significant amount of ice in a serious situation. Marta, do you have questions or anything?
No, we appreciate you taking time to break down the forecast. Of course, it has changed over the last few days. I'm sure it will hopefully change less significantly now that we're getting closer. But yeah, appreciate the updates and that we've been able to check in. I do want to mention we've got a few mayors around the country that are holding updates on weather conditions, winter weather preparations. So we're going to go to Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser, who's currently giving a live update on preparations across Washington, D.C., and her staff is also speaking right now. And then after that, we're going to go to Ryan Adcock with AAA Tidewater. He's going to be here with more tips for you to know before this winter weather comes in. But Craig, thank you again.
You bet, Marta.
All right, now to Washington, D.C.
The conditions that we're facing. Operations actually began last night at 7 p.m. We began brining the streets, and we will continue to brine the streets for through tomorrow before the snow begins. Once the operations really kick into high gear around noon tomorrow with the commencement of the snow emergency, we'll shift over from brining to salt to get a good layer of chemical down on the streets. And then once the snowfall starts, we really will begin to turn to straight plowing until the snowfall lets up. At the point that our operations really get into full swing, we will have in excess of 800 employees dedicated just to snow abatement and removal, and over 300 pieces of equipment, which includes some of the vehicles that you see behind us. Apologize for the interruption. Okay, so once snowfall gets underway, as the mayor said, we need everybody to take this serious. Please make sure that your cars aren't on the posted routes. We want to be able to clear from curb to curb so that fire, EMS, and other essential services such as DC Water and Pepco can get to any calls for service as quickly as possible during the duration of the storm. And we want you to avoid any fines or relocation of your vehicle. I want to stress the cold temperature on the back of this storm is going to be very serious, and as the mayor has indicated, you need to check on each other. Please stay off the roads if you can, stay inside where it's warm, but if you have elderly neighbors, please check on them. And then once the snowfall stops and you can venture outside, just help them out clearing their sidewalks. We'll touch on that with some of the other directors. And with the trash collection, we will do everything that we can to get back to normal service. There's going to be some slide dates. It's just the nature of the beast with this type of storm. I'm taking precautions to try and get us back to normal service as quickly as possible. We just ask you to be patient with us. And with that, I'll turn it over to the GM.
Good morning, everyone. Randy Clark, the Metro General Manager. I want to thank the Mayor for having me here today. It further reemphasizes that partnerships are so critical every day, but especially when there's incidents. Obviously, we work across all the regions, so I appreciate the Mayor declaring a state of emergency early. Allows us all to prepare and work together. Team Metro, just like the DPW team behind me, I want to thank them. We have thousands of people that are in preparation mode, working hard to make sure we can deliver service. So a couple things I want to go through here. We will have a full Emergency Operations Center activation starting on Saturday. We actually have, for the first time, staff embedded at DPW, so I want to thank DPW Director for that coordination. It is so important for sidewalks, bus stops, all that kind of coordination. When it comes to Metro, we have over 400 pieces of equipment for snow fighting and hundreds of people that will be actually deployed. So all the prep is active, just like DPW is here. So on the service front, rail definitely can operate in snow, but all snow is different. We are expecting very heavy snow, and obviously then the potential of ice. That is what we are most concerned about at Metro, is the buildup in ice. Extreme cold temperatures, the mayor mentioned too, also lead to potential rail breaks. We've had a few this week with the very serious cold. So all of that is, we are going to run rail service at the ability of safely running through those conditions. So it could vary. We are not going to run one line and not the rest of the lines, but it could vary in sections where we don't have full availability to run safely. So all track work that we normally had planned for this weekend has been canceled, and all of our staff are in. One thing that we're going to be doing, we're going to be storing trains inside, so we could fit about 60 train sets, give or take, inside the tunnels at all of our inside stations, and we'll be activating that very late Saturday night. We have our de-icer trains are already prepped and ready. Plow trains are ready, and all of our polisher trains are ready. And so we are going to be out doing all of that type of work. And again, we like DPW, will prep. When snow gets there, we'll plow, and then back to prepping for the ice after that. On the bus side, bus is heavily dependent on roadway conditions. So I want to just reiterate my thanks to our DC partner, but also our partners in Prince George's, Alexandria, Arlington, Fairfax, Montgomery County, Maryland DOT, Virginia DOT. We run on their infrastructure, and we work together to make sure those roads are safe. So where there's hills, where there's narrow roads or tight turns, that's especially challenging for us on the bus side. It's pretty clear we're going to have some bus impacts. There's probably no way around that. The question is how severe. We may have some temporary suspensions, but we are going to do everything we can again to serve especially places where there's critical staff, hospitals, grocery stores, things of that nature. And we'll work really closely with HCMA and all of our other regional partners to try to get people to those critical resources and critical facilities the best we can. Put all that to Metro Access, same deal. Service conditions will determine that. We are already proactively reaching out on the Metro Access side to try to reschedule trips. If you do not need an absolute kind of life mission out on Sunday morning especially, we ask that you please, use some weather sense here, stay inside, look after each other, as the mayor said, and then travel after that. On the notification side, we please ask you to hit Metro Pulse is our best way to get real-time information, or WMATA.com/snow. Also, all of our social media or with our with people in the regular media. So, last thing again, I want to just really emphasize this. We do not know what we are going to run right now. People have been reaching out. What is Metro going to do? No idea right now, in the sense of, because we don't know the conditions. It's going to vary based on these conditions. We will only run service if it is safe. And if it's safe, we're going to run as much service as possible, because we know how critical Metro is in people's lives in the DMV. So, again, please pay attention to alerts, and they could be dynamic and real time, especially between late Saturday through sometime on Monday. And again, thank you, Mayor, for having me here today. I think Tyler?
All right, once again, that was Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. She spoke first, and then we heard from members of Public Works and Transportation in Washington, D.C. on the city's preparations for this winter weather headed our way. All right, coming up in just a few minutes, we are going to hear from AAA Tidewater's Ryan Adcock. He's live in the studio this morning. He'll have more tips on what to do this weekend if you want to stay out of the winter weather, if you do have to drive, all very important tips to keep in mind. So stick around. We'll be back in just a few minutes. All right, thanks for sticking with us for Live Impact News here on this Friday morning. We are getting ready for this winter storm to head our way over the weekend. And with that, of course, we need to talk about driving safety, and who better to chat with than Ryan Adcock from AAA Tidewater. Thank you so much for joining us to share some helpful tips.
Of course, Marta, happy to be here.
So obviously, tip number one is a pretty easy one, and you always ask people to stay off the roads if they can. Why is that sort of the first recommendation when it comes to this weather?
Just avoiding that non-essential travel and staying home and staying warm on the couch is the safest place that you can be when we have these adverse weather conditions, especially affecting our roads. But we know that that's not realistic for people that there will be people that will have to be out there on the road. So urging them to drive with caution so that they can get to where they're going safely as well.
Definitely. And obviously, we're used to severe weather of all kinds here in coastal Virginia. So people may have driving kits already in their vehicle, but what items do you want people to have, or would you recommend having specifically for winter weather and staying safe?
Absolutely. Your winter emergency trunk kit, it obviously changes seasonally, but wanting to make sure you have maybe an extra big coat, a blanket, anything, especially if you're stuck on the side of the road for a prolonged period of time, that we would want to have normally, like our phone charger and our non-perishable snacks, but especially in this winter weather, anything that you could use to then keep yourself warm there on the side of the road as well.
Definitely. So talking about, obviously we have specific pointers for driving in winter, but there are some pointers you all pass along that seem like they should always be the case, like not driving distracted or fatigued, but they have extra importance when it comes to these conditions. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. So obviously our regular advice that we always give year-round: not driving distracted, not speeding. The speed limit is made for a clear day, perfect road conditions, perfect amount of traffic out there on the road. So anytime you add an extra layer, or this weekend layers of stuff that affects how fast or how slow you should be driving, you need to decrease that speed and drive with extra caution.
Definitely. So obviously the weather's coming on Saturday and over the weekend. Now would be the best time for people to prepare if they have things they need to do to prepare their vehicle. What do you recommend when it comes to, before you have to hunker down, or if you do have to drive, prepping your car or your truck for what's to come?
Absolutely. So time is our friend. There are things that people can do right now to make sure that they are safe out there in the weather this weekend, like making sure you have enough tread on your tires, because anytime that there's any sort of precipitation, but specifically any sort of precipitation that will linger and stay on the roads, it's important that your tires have enough tread as possible so that they can grip the road. And then as well, making sure that all of your fluids are up, making sure that your gas tank is full, and then sort of post-weather, making sure that you're taking your car through the car wash and rinsing off all of those chemicals and all of the stuff that VDOT is laying down to help with that, the winter weather, and help it melt so that none of the metal on the under part of your vehicle corrodes.
Yeah, that's one that I always forget about. I remember to prepare beforehand. I remember to have gas and fill my tires, but then you don't think about the corrosion that can happen underneath your vehicle. So that's definitely important.
Absolutely important to go and clean all that gunk out from under there, because even not just the stuff that causes corrosion, but all of the debris that gets kicked up when you're driving through this winter weather as well. Just important to start off with a clean slate after it's all over.
And I imagine because we're going to see those slushy conditions, that can also lead to, stuff getting caught in the undercarriage. We're going to have snow, but then we're going to have those wet, sloppy conditions as well.
Right. So all of that stuff just getting kicked up and caked on the underneath part of your car every time that you're out there driving. So especially important to get that taken care of after this winter weather is over.
Well, as someone who loves cruise control, I use cruise control everywhere. I don't love this next tip, but you say avoid using it. Why is that something you all want to pass along?
The conditions can change so suddenly when you're out there on the road, and so you're just wanting to make sure that you are drivers should always be fully in control of their vehicle, but fully all the way in control of their vehicle and the speed that they're driving, in case they need to make any evasive maneuvers, or if you do come across a patch of slush or a patch of ice, you just want to make sure that you have that foot on the gas or on the brake, and because that second between getting your foot there could be the potential between you getting in a collision or not.
Definitely. And we always talk about, if you are in a skid, you want to steer in the direction that you want to go. Can you talk a little bit about if people do find themselves in an emergency or a potential emergency situation, best practices for keeping control of their vehicle, and what happens if they do end up in an accident?
Right. So it seems counterintuitive, right? Because it seems like you would want to absolutely slam on the brakes and then overcorrect so that you can stop the direction that you're going. But you just want to kind of lean into that direction that you're going and gently pump on your brakes so that you can stop that skid. And stay safe. And before even potentially getting into a skid or a spin like that, driving at those lower speeds will make the impacts in the effects of that skid should you get into one a little bit less.
All right, let's talk about four-wheel drive. I know some people think four-wheel drive is like the ultimate fix to all weather conditions. Talk to me about, in which situations that's effective, and if you have four-wheel drive, does that mean you can just take it easy on the roads when we have those winter conditions?
Right, and people are like, why? I have four-wheel drive all the time. My four wheels are on the ground and they're driving. But most of the time, it's just those two wheels that are doing the most of the driving, and then the other two wheels that are kind of just following suit. And four-wheel drive can be good if you are in any deep snow or deep mud or things like that. But anytime that there's not a large amount of accumulation on the ground, you just want to drive in regular drive, I guess it is, and so that you can, your tires can grip, and so that should you get into a skid, that you can maintain a little bit more control.
Definitely. Is there anything else, Ryan, that you all want to pass along for the next few days, or specifically for today? I know this is kind of like the calm before the storm. Any last tips that you want to pass along?
Yeah, quite literally the calm before the storm. But just there are, anytime that we have I was saying before, anytime that there's an extra layer of caution that drivers need to take, there's always that chance that there will be motorists there on the side of the road, there will be crashes that occur that are taking up the side of the road there, so that if motorists are coming across any of those flashing red, blue, or amber lights, or personal flashing hazard lights on a vehicle, making sure that if they're able to, slowing down, well, they should slow down always, but if they're able to move over so that they can give that stranded motorists and the first responders that are there helping them enough space to get that crash cleared quickly.
Yeah, it's always unfortunate, since I do traffic, when I see a crash happen and then you see a crash happen right next to it and you're like, I think I know what happened here.
Yep, exactly. So just want to make sure that you're giving them enough space, because it does it inconvenience drivers in the moment, sure, but that little bit of extra time and extra space that they're given can help get that whatever is there on the side of the road cleared quickly, so that traffic can get moving again.
Definitely. Well, thank you, Ryan. Always great to have you here. Always have such great tips. Stay safe. Stay home if you can. We appreciate you being here. All right, coming up next on Live Impact News, we're going to hear from Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger, who declared a state of emergency yesterday to prep crews, prep resources for the weather impacts that are headed our way. So we're going to hear what she had to say during that announcement. We'll also get the latest on the forecast from meteorologist Hunter Forst. Stick around. We'll be right back. All right, thanks for sticking with us here on Live Impact News on this Friday. When we checked in yesterday during Live Impact News, North Carolina was under a state of emergency, and we heard from Governor Josh Stein, who talked about the resources that are now available under that state of emergency. He also mentioned all the preparations that are underway. Later on yesterday during the afternoon, Governor Abigail Spanberger of Virginia also declared a state of emergency due to the winter weather that's headed our way. Of course, she was just sworn into office recently, so we're going to hear from her. We're going to hear the comments she had to say about this winter weather and what to expect in Virginia. Again, North Carolina and Virginia now under those states of emergency.
Good afternoon. I want to thank everyone for joining us today for this press conference. With me here today, we have John Scrivani, the State Coordinator for Virginia Department of Emergency Management. We have Stephen Britch, the Commissioner of Virginia Department of Transportation, Jeffrey Katz, the Superintendent of Virginia State Police, and Brigadier General Todd Hubbard with the Virginia National Guard. We also have Secretary of Public Safety and Homeland Security, Stanley Metter, and Secretary of Transportation, Nick Donahue. We are here today because Virginia is expecting a large winter storm that is predicted to impact the entire Commonwealth. I have just signed an emergency declaration due to the impending large winter storm. The declaration will allow state agencies to be prepared for impacts all across the Commonwealth. We are expecting large amounts of snowfall, freezing rain, and sleet. And we also expect Virginia will experience dangerously low temperatures, power outages, and unpredictable road conditions. Virginia agencies across the Commonwealth are currently preparing for this large-scale storm. The Virginia Department of Transportation is prepared for this multi-day storm response. They have begun with pre-treating and will have resources pre-positioned across the state so they can clear snow, address ice conditions, clear disabled vehicles, and obstructed roadways. Virginia Department of Transportation will prioritize our interstates and primary roads, and if the storm comes in as predicted, it will take time for roads to be cleared and passable. So I am asking all Virginians to spend this time getting prepared for this incoming storm. And then I am asking all Virginians to stay off the roads as of Saturday night, all day Sunday, through Monday morning. This will allow not only for the safety and security of our neighbors, but it will allow for faster clearing of roads and ensure greater safety during what we expect will be the most dangerous times on the roads. The Virginia National Guard will be mobilizing their troops to be ready to assist in debris clearance and emergency response in coordination with state and local agencies. And before we take your questions, I'm going to turn it over to John Scrivani, the State Coordinator of the Virginia Department of Emergency Management.
Thank you, Governor. Welcome to the Virginia Emergency Operations Center. As the Governor mentioned, this is going to be a significant and dangerous storm. One piece that we just have to focus on as well is after the precipitation stops, it is going to be very cold for multiple days, probably through Thursday. So we want to make sure everybody is prepared, as the Governor mentioned. VDEM is coordinating closely with state agencies, local partners, our private sector, and utility partners. That goes across VDOT, Department of Health, the Department of Energy, Department of Education, as well as our utility partners. We have a full court press on for this event. Our agencies coordinate for these types of events year-round, so we are prepared. That is the key here. We also have our federal partners participating in all of our meetings and here in the Emergency Operations Center. We have National Weather Service and FEMA present today. I want to finish with just a few short items as reminders. You need to listen to trusted information sources as you get your information about this storm and as you make decisions. Please do not follow anything that isn't trusted. Listen to your local elected officials, your local government. They will share information that we push forward. Also, emergency alerts in these types of situations are very important. If your phone is not activated or accepting wireless emergency alerts, please do that now. We may need to send those at some point. The last thing I will hit is on that preparedness. Please check on your neighbors, especially those that are elderly or have special needs. Preparedness is key. This is going to be a Commonwealth-wide event. All the people of the Commonwealth need to be paying attention to this. And if you will be coming and traveling through the Commonwealth this weekend, please check the road conditions before you try to come through on the weekend. Thank you very much, Governor. I'll pass it back to you.
And now we're prepared to take questions, and I might direct them to some of the leadership behind me, depending upon the question.
Governor, thank you for holding this. A few days on the job, this is the first test of you and leadership. How are you feeling heading into this right now, preparations and everything ahead of the storm?
Well, I want to thank the entire Virginia Department of Emergency Management, because last month we did a tabletop exercise that was meant to ensure that I, as the incoming governor at that point, knew the extraordinary coordination that occurs in this very place, the preparation that, as Mr. Scrivani mentioned, is happening year-round. And interestingly, the tabletop exercise that we went through prepared for a large-scale winter storm with snow, sleet, and freezing rain conditions. So we have gone through this practice exercise, not anticipating that certainly the first week we'd be facing this, but I have full confidence in the leadership of the folks here behind me, and importantly, the people who will be doing the work across our Commonwealth, coordinating across state agencies out on the roads, and ensuring the safety of our neighbors and the as quick as possible return to passability on the roads and easier movement once we get through the storm. Thank you.
Governor, you have a lot of new cabinet members, you've got new agency heads. Can you talk about what they're doing within their agencies to, whether it's improve communication or just start those lines of communication? Obviously, some folks have only been in the job for 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, well, and I'll speak to this, and then I will turn it over if anyone wants to add. Certainly, we've got some folks who are new to a particular job title, but not new to the job of, be it transportation. Certainly, Secretary Donahue spent an extraordinary amount of time in leadership within the Virginia Department of Transportation. And so while the title's new, the experience of contending with winter storms and the impact on our roads is not new. Certainly Secretary Metter, new to the title, but not new to a large-scale emergency response. Superintendent Katz in his role, certainly new to this title, but not new to the impact across our roadways that large-scale storms can have, and the need for local, state, real, true coordination in order to ensure the safety and security of the first responders out there trying to clear roadways, trying to get power lines back up when they fall, and also in trying to ensure the safety of motorists who may become stranded. Would anyone want to add to that?
Hey, Governor, I was going to ask regarding the transportation issue. I know it's early on, but can you talk about how soon the roads might be treated or cleared, rather, especially the main roadways? I know we're in those really cold temperatures where some of the pre-treating might not be as effective. And then additionally, I know we're a year removed from the water crisis in Richmond. I'm sure a lot of people are concerned about that. Anything you can talk about communications with the city on that?
So I'll speak briefly and then turn it over to Commissioner Britch if he'd like to add any additional points. The important piece here is that looking at the weather reports as we are seeing what's anticipated, the mix of snowfall, the mix of freezing rain, sleet, and then very low temperatures will make this a difficult storm to respond to and will elongate the amount of time it will take to clear roads. Virginia Department of Transportation is prioritizing the clearing of our interstates and those primary roads to ensure the ability to transport people to hospitals and to ensure sort of basic function. But it will be a number of days before people will begin to see neighborhood roads cleared and a return to what we would consider a normal ability to travel across our Commonwealth. But the work that's being done now, whether it is through pretreatment or movement of resources and the ability to respond, that work is either happening now or in the planning phases right now. And Commissioner Britch, I'll turn it over to you in case.
Right behind
there
you.
you are.
Thank you, Governor. Just a quick update on the pre-treatment activities that we have ongoing. You're going to see all of our interstates and high volume primaries being pre-treated with brine solution starting today and concluding by close of business tomorrow. Our crews will be mobilizing at its highest level, mobilization 5 across all 9 of our districts. That means that we will have close to 10,000 pieces of equipment moving in response to this storm statewide. Part of this too is recognizing that we will have potential for icing conditions on the southern half of the state. We are mobilizing our tree crews to be able to be in the neighborhoods and making sure the trees are clear. If there are down power lines, we're coordinating with the power companies to be able to make sure those lines are de-energized before we get in there. As the governor has indicated, that this is a significant Commonwealth storm, probably the first time that we've seen close to, in Northern Virginia and Northern Shenandoah Valley, anywhere between 18 to 23 inches, at least forecast. It will take time for us to clear the roads. The governor's indicated that our first priority is our interstate system, as well as high volume primary roads to our area hospitals and whatnot. Our second tier is going to be our lower volume primary roads, then our secondary roads, and then neighborhood roads. It is possible that some localities or some subdivisions will not see a VDOT snowplow for anywhere up to 24 to 48 hours after the snow is concluded. So this is a very significant storm for us. We're constantly monitoring the snowfall rates, and that will depend on how fast we can get into the subdivision streets. So as the governor said, now's the time to be able to prepare, recognize that it will take some time to be able to get into the neighborhood streets based upon this level of snowfall, but it's something that we will continue to monitor and shift resources as needed. Thank you.
Governor, it's obviously a big regional weather event. Can you describe any interactions you've had with officials in D.C., Maryland, and even the White House to coordinate for this?
So as of right now, and I will turn it over to Mr. Scrivani to further comment on this, it is expected that this snow is going to impact not just Virginia, though the entirety of the Commonwealth, but our neighbors in North Carolina and West Virginia in particular will be heavily impacted. I will be doing, at the conclusion of this press conference, some outreach to our direct neighbors, but I have spoken to leadership in other potentially impacted states about what it is that they are seeing on the ground and how it is that they are preparing. Certainly, I'm grateful we have some individuals here with us today from the National Weather Service and from FEMA, and depending upon the ongoing impacts of this storm, may need to move forward with requests for an emergency declaration at the federal level. Mr. Scrivani, would you add anything additional to that?
Yes, ma'am. So we have constant outreach, as the governor mentioned, with FEMA. We also have calls scheduled with the White House, the National Security Council, and DHS today. They have outreach to us directly. We are getting on the calls with them. They are interested in leaning forward and providing support as we ask for it. We have more team members from FEMA showing up today, so that outreach has been seamless at this point. They have pushed forward, and they're leaning in as well as we. Thank you.
Governor, a lot of Richmond residents are very uneasy about this upcoming storm. The last time we had a storm this big, we were without water for 6 days. Can you talk about any communication between the state and localities, specifically Richmond, and what people in Richmond can expect, as far as safety going into this?
So I'll begin with this question, and then again, Mr. Scrivani, if you would like to add anything. Certainly, I mentioned in response to an earlier question that we had run through tabletop exercises related to this specific type of storm last month. And part of what we have seen in the Commonwealth of Virginia over the last year is recognition of, how a confluence of real negative circumstances can create what we saw in the city of Richmond last year. And so there's been much planning over the past year to ensure that any now identified potential challenges or weaknesses in the system, as we witnessed in Richmond, could be mitigated. So part of the larger Virginia Department of Emergency Management efforts, and the folks who will be represented here will include those who are focused on ensuring access to water and the actual function of our water treatment plants and our water facilities.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thanks for that question. So the way the Virginia Department of Emergency Management is structured is we have regional offices. Our regional coordinators work with all the local emergency managers. Obviously, the city of Richmond is in our backyard, so I also speak directly with their emergency management team. Specific to the water, the city did an after action. The mayor has been pushing forward. I can't speak to their infrastructure and the status of it. That would be a question for their team. But I do know that if they need any support, they haven't asked for any outreach yet related to their infrastructure, but our team is working very closely with them at the regional level. And if they have any larger requests, as with the water, that would come here to the Emergency Operations Center, and we would support them.
Can you speak to emergency management planning in Southwest Virginia specifically, which is a very beautiful but topographically difficult region for storms such as these?
Yeah, well, and certainly, and I'll again turn it over to Mr. Scrivani, but also Commissioner Britch might have some specific comments related to particular challenges on roadways. Virginia Department of Transportation is planning to identify certain hotspot locations where there are traditionally larger issues with vehicles on roadways, particularly with these difficult conditions, recognizing the terrain in Southwest has its own particular challenges. That is one concern. And then from a regional perspective, I'll defer to Mr. Scrivani to speak specifically about the planning within that region.
To take the question with regard to
All right, once again, that was Governor Abigail Spanberger, Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger, talking about the state's preparations for this winter weather. And you may have heard her mention that they actually did a tabletop exercise, which is sort of like a simulation on a storm like this just a month ago. So talking about how they have been preparing for this, even though she's brand new to the governor's office. There has been some discussion about what would happen in a situation like this. Just to, recap a few points that she made that are important for our viewers here. Interstates and secondary roads have been pre-treated. Road crews were mobilized at their highest level, meaning it's all hands on deck when it comes to pre-treating these roads. And then I do want to mention what the VDOT spokesperson at the meeting talked about. He said some areas, some neighborhoods may not see a snowplow for 24 to 48 hours. And that's because they'll be out on the interstates, they'll be out on those primary roads. So if you live in a neighborhood and you don't see a snowplow, it's just because of the scale that they expect this storm to, impact the roads and impact their crews. They said, it will take some time, but rest assured they will be on their way to clear out roads, as soon as they can. And of course, that is impacted by the snowfall rates depending on different areas of the state. So a lot still that we're waiting to find out with the exact timing of the storm. Coming up in just a few minutes, we've got meteorologist Hunter Forst here. He's going to give us the latest storm track. He's going to give us, the latest information on what we expect to see with this storm. So we'll be back in just a few minutes with more on that. Stay here. Welcome back to Live Impact News on this Friday. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, I'm Marta Berglund filling in for Eugene. And we've had our cast of meteorologists come through the studio today and talk about the latest on the forecast. So we chatted with Craig about an hour ago. Now it's time to turn it over to meteorologist Hunter Forst.
Hello, hello.
For the latest. Hunter, how are we feeling?
We are feeling pretty confident about the forecast, I'll tell you that. But the good news is we have plenty of time to get ready and prepare as we head into this upcoming weekend. Luckily, yesterday was beautiful. We were right around 60. Today, not too bad. We're going to be in the upper 40s to right around 50, so another good day to prepare. And then as we head into Saturday, it's going to be brutally cold Saturday morning, but we're going to stay dry through much of the day. And then we're going to be seeing the snow showers rolling through as we head into Saturday evening. So, brutal cold tonight into tomorrow morning, single-digit wind chills, but we're dry, mostly cloudy through the day, and then heading into Saturday evening, Saturday night, we see those snow showers. And then Sunday morning, we're going to start to see a transition from snow to some sleet, ice, and some rain, unfortunately. So we do have the potential to pick up a couple of inches of snow, but it's not going to last very long, and likely by the time you wake up, it's going to be a slushy, gross mess. Here's a look at some of the winter storm alerts. It's not just for us, it's across the country. We have winter storm warnings up from Texas through Oklahoma and Kansas, all the way into Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, expanding all the way up into New England. This is over 1,800 miles worth of winter storm alerts. We even have ice storm warnings in a few pockets there around South Carolina, North Carolina, into Mississippi, and southern Tennessee as well. So a lot of areas could see freezing rain, which could lead to a good amount of ice accumulation, which is a very, very dangerous situation. But for us here, we are just seeing more of the winter storm watches. These could turn to warnings as we head into this evening or tomorrow morning. But we also have cold weather advisories. This is for tomorrow morning. This is for all of us here in Hampton Roads. For wind chills from 5 below 0 to just 5. It is going to be so cold tomorrow morning. You're going to have to bundle up from head to toe. Some thick socks, some great pants, honestly, some snow pants perhaps. It's not going to be snowing, but those are thick. Those will be feeling pretty good. And then a couple of layers up on top, sweatshirts, big winter jackets, some earmuffs, and then a nice hat as well. But here's a look at the future windcast. The future cast wind chill Saturday morning. 3 below in Tappahannock and Accomack, 5 in Virginia Beach, 8 in Norfolk, 9 in Chesapeake, 9 in Elizabeth City. The warm spot here is Kill Devil Hills, feeling like 16. So it is just not going to be a great, day to get outside and kind of get what you need to for the system that's heading our way. Today would be a great day to do it. Yesterday was nice, but tomorrow is just going to be too cold. Just going to kind of want to hang out inside the entire day and maybe get some good food that Marta displayed on Friday Flavor today.
Pancakes.
Shout out to that.
Yeah, pancakes, omelet, latkes.
Pancakes, that Reuben, yum. But here we go, heading into this evening. We're dry, we're chilly, into the mid to upper 30s. And then as we head into Saturday morning, some very cold air filtering in. These are actual air temperatures. We're in the mid to upper teens to low 20s, feeling like, the single digits to teens throughout the afternoon. But we're dry. If you did head out, things are looking fine. 2, 3, 4 o'clock, we're staying nice and dry. But heading into 6, 7 o'clock, that's when we start to see some snow showers pushing on through for our western areas. And then this really starts to fill in 9, 10, 11 o'clock Saturday night. Here we are, 10:15. This is Saturday. Seeing some more widespread rain. Definitely going to start to be seeing some accumulation. Seeing some heavier snow in a few areas as well. But it's snowing pretty much everywhere except for, Hertford, Murfreesboro, Roanoke Rapids. You're starting to see more of that warm air loft filtering into that region. So you're seeing more of a mix, some sleet, some freezing rain. That's why you're not seeing all snow, even though temperatures are below freezing, because they're seeing some warmer air higher up in the atmosphere. But as we get into, about midnight, we do start to see that mixed rain line get further off into the north, and that continues into about 2, 3, 4 o'clock. So, say in Norfolk or Virginia Beach, you picked up 2, 3 inches of snow, and then 4 o'clock it starts raining, and temperatures get above freezing. You're not really likely going to be waking up to a beautiful winter wonderland. It'll likely be melted or close to being melted by then. But it could stay a bit longer in areas further off, around Accomack, Cape Charles, Gloucester, Williamsburg, even out west. But if you do want to see some snow, I would say set an alarm for 2 o'clock Saturday morning. Then you could see some of that pretty snow coming down. But that rain continues to push off towards the north and west by 7, 8 o'clock in the morning. So this is plain old rain from most of the eastern shore down through much of the south side and into eastern North Carolina. The pink is more of that wintry mix and freezing rain where you could see some ice accumulation. And of course, that leads to some dangerous road conditions and possible power outages as well. But then we continue to see some of that rain pushing a bit more westward, heading into Sunday afternoon around Gloucester and Williamsburg. So that's good there. Temperatures now above freezing, but still at or below freezing around the 95 corridor. Seeing a little bit of a break in the south side. And then as we head into Sunday evening, we start to see another round of showers and mix rolling on through the area. And then it's out of here heading into early Monday morning. Things start to look much better with a few lingering showers, especially down into the Outer Banks. So here's a look at that snowfall potential as we head into the weekend. Keep in mind, the snow window is a short one. 8 p.m. Saturday to around 3 o'clock Sunday morning. So it's not going to be a whole snow event from Saturday through Sunday into early Monday. It's just going to be that small window, and that's where we pick up these accumulations. But it's not going to stay very long because of that transition to some rain and wintry mix. So you could pick up an inch in parts of eastern North Carolina, down through the south side, here in Norfolk, Virginia Beach, 1 to 3 plus inches possible. And the further north you go, the higher those totals. Melfa, Williamsburg, 3 to 6 inches. And that could stay on the ground a little bit longer because that transition to a mix in rain takes longer to get that far north. And then you see a little bit more up around Richmond, Tappahannock, Cheekatogue, even, off towards D.C., where they're going to get a lot of snow. But Tappahannock, Richmond, around 6 to 8 plus inches. Now we take a look at the ice impact potential as we head into Sunday morning through the afternoon. So one of the good things about this map this morning compared to yesterday is that the extreme impacts have shifted much more down to the south and west, and it's a much smaller patch of that extreme impact. Still seeing some major impacts around Richmond, down through Emporia, out into Farmville. But if you zoom into Williamsburg, Gloucester Point, Gloucester, you were in the major to extreme impacts yesterday. Luckily today, you're in the minor to moderate, but still cutting it close to the major impacts. That's over towards Brandon, Newville, Hopewell, Petersburg are in the major impacts, but even Poquoson not expecting to now see a whole lot in the way of freezing rain. So that's great news. Saluda in the moderate impact. Down around Surrey, Ivor, Windsor, Franklin, Cortland, minor to moderate impacts. Not a whole lot here in Norfolk or Virginia Beach, not expecting really any freezing rain here. And then as we get into eastern North Carolina, Seaboard, Como, Murfreesboro, Ahoskie, Gatesville, Reynoldson, minor to moderate impacts. But Emporia, you guys are in that major impact potential. So the further west you go, the likely you'll see those power outages, but still possible, of course, in minor to moderate impacts. That's very possible to see some power outages, but those chances increase significantly once you get to those major impacts in that pink there. So here's what we could see in terms of that ice potential through Sunday. 1/10 of an inch, around Chesapeake, Eatonton, that'll make things slick. But once you're getting to, 1/4 of an inch to especially 1/2 an inch closer to Richmond, that's when things really get serious. So, Newport News, West Point, Franklin, Ahoskie, 2/3 of an inch, 2/10 of an inch around Newport News, 3/10 of an inch in Franklin. So certainly could be seeing some impacts around there. Especially off towards Richmond and Emporia, where you're seeing just under 1/2 an inch of ice. So here's the difference between freezing rain and sleet, because we could see some sleet as well mixing on in, but sleet certainly isn't as dangerous as freezing rain. Sleet has a beat. You have to remember that. So when it's coming down, it's kind of like that.
It sounds like a jam.
It's like that. That's better.
Oh, okay.
But freezing rain is much quieter, because it's literal rain falling down from the sky, but freezing on contact when it touches something on the surface that's at or below freezing. But sleet kind of bounces around. It could accumulate, but it's not as dangerous as freezing rain. Freezing rain could lead to extremely dangerous road conditions and power outages because they're tugging on those power lines, and they're also tugging on tree branches. You could see that coating of ice wrapped around that branch there, and that's what you get with a lot of freezing rain. And then all of that extra weight pulls down those tree branches, and they can fall onto power lines, and that's what leads to power outages. So freezing rain looks like a glazed donut. Sleet,
Wait, really? The glazed donuts just out
like
on
if
the
you
street?
if you had two plain donuts and it was sleeting over here and it was freezing rain over here, freezing rain, it would end up looking like a glazed donut. But if it was sleeting on this donut, it would look more like sprinkles.
Now I'm
But not as
hungry.
pretty. I'm hungry too. I feel like aren't there donuts here? I think there are. Might have to get one after this. But here's a look at the impacts from ice. Up to 1/4 of an inch or less. Of course, you're going to want to avoid unnecessary travel, scattered power outages, but even up to 1/2 an inch where, over towards Richmond, they could see icy roads, broken tree limbs, and numerous power outages. So something going to want to keep in mind this weekend. Got to be extra careful and pay attention and stay close to the forecast.
Yeah, so sounds like even if it's not all snow, which we don't foresee it being at this point, there are still dangerous impacts that we could see.
Absolutely, especially if you're seeing that freezing rain closer to the 95 corridor. That's where it gets, pretty treacherous.
All right, so if we see the glazed donut, we know we're in trouble.
Absolutely.
All right, well, thank you so much, Hunter. We appreciate you taking the time, and of course, you'll be on 13 News Now at noon in just a bit for another update on the forecast, and you'll be here all weekend.
And I'll be here all weekend.
So we'll be tracking the storm
be
minute by minute.
Mm-hmm.
All right, coming up in just a few minutes here on Live Impact News, we are expecting to hear once again from North Carolina Governor Josh Stein. Of course, we had a live update from him yesterday. We expect to just get the latest on those winter weather preparations. So that's what we're waiting for right now. We have a few other tips and reminders from local leaders that we can, pass along as well if we need to. But right now, we are mostly waiting on North Carolina Governor Josh Stein. So you can see in the box there, the press conference is set up. We're just waiting for when it begins. We'll take a break and we'll be right back in just a few minutes, hopefully with his remarks from North Carolina. right, thanks for sticking with us. Governor Josh Stein of North Carolina is speaking right now on the latest winter weather preparations, so we're going to get right to him, hear what he has to say about the winter storm headed our way.
Sleet, ice, freezing rain, and bitterly cold temperatures, this storm is expected to cause major disruptions to your daily life, possibly for days. Our message to North Carolina is simple. This is a serious storm. We are taking it seriously, and so should you. On Wednesday, I declared a state of emergency across North Carolina to mobilize resources in advance of the storm. We've activated the State Emergency Response Team, a cross-agency group that includes the Department of Transportation, the Department of Public Safety, the North Carolina National Guard, the State Highway Patrol, and our state's utilities. The NCDOT has already put down 2.8 million gallons of brine to pre-treat the roads and is ready to salt the roads and plow them once the storm begins. The State Emergency Response Team has shipped pallets of meals and drinking water around the state in preparation. Some localities are starting to open warming centers, so check your local government emergency management's website to see what options are available near you. And utilities like Duke Energy have brought in more than 18,000 workers from around the country to help restore power where necessary. At this time, because of expected ice accumulation and cold temperatures, our greatest concerns remain unsafe travel and power outages that could last for days. So we recommend that you take the following actions to navigate this winter weather event. First, stay informed. Make sure you're following your local media, the National Weather Service, and your local emergency management agency for the latest updates and recommendations. Second, get disaster supplies ready now in case you lose power and can't leave home for a few days. You may need water, non-perishable food, medication, and other supplies for 3 to 5 days for each person and pet in your household. You may also need a flashlight and fresh batteries, a battery-operated radio, a way to keep your phone charged, and blankets and winter clothing. Visit readync.gov for more detailed information about how to prepare for a storm. Third, make a plan. Make a plan for if the power goes out, how you'll safely keep warm, what you'll eat, and who you will call in case you need help. Be ready to reach out to family or authorities for help if you're without power for an extended period of time. The effects of the storm could last for days. Fourth, stay off the roads starting tomorrow. For your own safety and that of others, please do not drive unless it is necessary. And that request will likely extend beyond the weekend. Next week is going to be cold. We expect the temperature to fall below freezing every night for the next 7 days. That means whatever ice or snow that turns to slush during the day will freeze again overnight. Black ice will remain at risk in many places into next week. So plan for the possibility that you'll be stuck at home for a few days. Fifth and finally, as you're getting ready yourself, don't forget to check on your loved ones, neighbors, and anyone you know who might be vulnerable, including the elderly. Over the past year, I've been inspired time and again by the many North Carolinians I've seen lending a helping hand to their neighbors in need. So please look out for your family and yourself and for your neighbors too. North Carolina, that's how we're going to get through this storm together. Thank you. I'll now turn it over to Director Ray and then Secretary Johnson. Director Ray.
Thank you, Governor. Good morning, everyone. Winter storm warnings and ice warnings are now in effect through midday Monday for the mountains and the Piedmont. A winter storm watch remains in effect farther east, and as accumulation types and amounts become clearer, the watch will transition to warnings or advisories. Significant wintry precipitation is forecast over the weekend, with major impacts lingering into early next week as dangerously cold temperatures are forecast. Ice accumulation of a quarter inch or more is likely across much of North Carolina Saturday through Monday morning. Areas across the southern mountains, higher elevations into the Blue Ridge Escarpment, and into much of central North Carolina are forecast to see the most impactful ice accumulations, and in some cases, reaching or exceeding 1 inch. As a reminder, ice accumulations of around a ½ inch of ice or more can cause an increase in downed trees or impact power lines and lead to an increase in power outages, as well as hazardous travel conditions. Based on this morning's forecast update, hazardous travel conditions are expected to begin by midday Saturday and will worsen through Sunday and may remain for several days due to those lingering low temperatures. We need all North Carolinians to remain focused on preparing for the potential impacts with a plan and supplies to support you and your family for the next several days. Unnecessary travel not only puts you at risk, but also the public safety personnel, the power crews, and the DOT workers who are working to respond to emergencies, to restore power, and to clear roadways. The State Emergency Response Team, including all our interagency partners, our private sector and nonprofit and volunteer agencies, has been activated here at the State Emergency Operations Center, as well as our regional coordination centers in Kinston, Burlington, and Hickory. We continue to support commodity distribution from our activated warehouses. As of this morning, the State Emergency Response Team has shipped approximately 65 pallets of meals ready to eat, or MREs, and drinking water to assist communities with shelter operations if needed. This is in addition to over 460 cots and blanket shipments to supplement local supply, as well as commodities that have been shipped into local communities over the past several months to assist in building local capacity. Additional commodities are shipping out from our warehouses today into tomorrow. 11 county states of emergency have been declared, and 2 county emergency operations center are activated, with many others monitoring plans to activate this weekend. Communities across the state are opening shelter locations and warming stations. For the most up-to-date information on the resources available in your community, please visit your local government and local emergency management agency's website and social media accounts. Elements of the North Carolina National Guard are active today and pre-positioning across the state to quickly assist the needs of our communities. 95 force packages will be assisting with clearing roadways from downed trees, helping disabled motorists, supplementing our first responders, and assisting with commodity distribution. These force packages include approximately 430 National Guardsmen and women and 170 vehicles, and they will be on station across the state later today. We remain in close coordination with our energy sector partners who are present here at the State EOC and will be closely monitoring power outage information and assisting any needs to quickly restore power in communities that do see outages. The North Carolina Forest Service has placed six task forces on standby to assist local first responders or state agencies with clearing roadways as soon as it's safe to do so. Each task force is comprised of saw crews, heavy equipment, and a mechanic. Additional chainsaw crews are activated, and all 100 counties are staffed with their forestry personnel. Communications personnel and equipment have been pre-deployed to assist with any degradation of 911 systems, radio systems, and phone networks. 44 caches of radios have been deployed to assist with local response efforts, and our partners at the North Carolina Highway Patrol have conducted checks of the systems that support the state's Viper radio system, used by our first responders statewide. As a reminder, 911 should only be used for emergencies. For general information, please call 211 or follow your local government and emergency management websites and social media accounts. We will continue to work with the entire State Emergency Response Team, local and state governments, the private sector, and our nonprofit and volunteer agencies as the forecast continues to evolve to ensure we can support our 11 million North Carolinians. As we go into the weekend, it is imperative that, again, all North Carolinians are prepared for preparedness information and checklists. Please visit readync.gov. Finally, please check on your friends, your family members, and neighbors, or those in your community who may need additional support this weekend. We're going to see significant winter storm impacts, and we are stronger and more resilient together. Thank you, Governor. I'll now turn it over to Secretary Johnson from DOT.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Director Ray. Safety is our top priority at NCDOT, and it remains our key message today. With the likelihood of icy weather creating treacherous travel conditions in the days ahead, we urge people to please stay put if you don't need to be out on the roads. Staying off the roads during and after the storm allows DOT crews, law enforcement, utility crews, and other emergency responders to do their work. We're expecting a storm that is largely going to be ice-related, which makes traveling on the roads that much more challenging. Even if you have a large truck or SUV, driving on icy roads can be nearly impossible. We'll also have implemented immediate towing measures with the cooperation of the State Highway Patrol to help remove any vehicles that have been disabled, to help both facilitate clearing of the roads and also to eliminate danger for those traveling on those roads. People may notice messages that we placed on digital highway signs across the state. Crews will focus on these efforts on highways and primary routes. We will continue the effort until NCDOT and the Highway Patrol determine that it is safe to lift these measures. We're also continuing to monitor forecasts closely with the help of our partners at the National Weather Service. Forecasts help us make informed decisions and ensure we're placing resources where they're needed most. That's especially important when a storm has statewide impacts like this one. Our crews are in the process of wrapping up pre-storm preparations. As the governor noted, the department has applied about 2.8 million gallons of brine on the roads and state system. Nearly all 2,100 DOT employees who are trained to respond to such storms have contributed to this effort. They're now transitioning their focus and equipment to be ready to clear the roads as the storm moves in. This includes removing trees and limbs that may fall. Salt on hand is at 160,000 tons, and we continue to secure additional salt and distribute it across the state. So we're in good shape from a supply standpoint. We're taking all precautions possible because we aren't going to take a chance with your safety. I encourage everyone to stay informed, make safe decisions about travel, and ensure you have all the supplies you need in case this ends up being a long-term event. People can visit drivenc.gov to view the latest road conditions and other storm-related information. Thank you. I'll turn it back over to the governor for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you, Director Ray. If any of y'all have questions, feel free to go to the microphones on either side of the room. Yes.
Hi, Caroline Yaffa with WRAL News. So since we're expecting icy roadways, what should essential workers, state employees do to make sure that they're safe and if the roadways are dangerous, and if they feel that it's not safe to travel, what are the impacts that could mean for the community?
Yeah. One area that we have a special concern is whenever you have vulnerable people together, whether that's at a retirement center or at a hospital, and each of those facilities have their own emergency plans. And part of that is having the preparation that folks may have to spend the night at their place of work so that they don't have to travel on the roads back and forth and put themselves at risk or find themselves unable to get back to work where they are desperately needed by the patients or residents of that community. In terms of essential workers for the state, each department, each agency has its own emergency plan and its own way to notify folks of when they should come to work and if they should come to work. Obviously, we don't want anyone traveling who absolutely does not need to, and if they can't get there safely, they should not be on the road.
All right, hearing from Governor Josh Stein about the winter weather preparations underway in North Carolina, and he was just mentioning, for essential workers and people who need to be at work, this is a storm that they foresee. Some people may have to stay overnight at those places of work. It just depends on the emergency plan that their specific employer has. He also mentioned during this press conference that they expect this storm to be a, quote, major disruption to daily lives, possibly for days. He also mentioned that 2.8 million gallons of brine has already been laid down on North Carolina roadways, and then they expect the salt and such to follow after the storm begins. 18,000 workers from around the country are in North Carolina ready to go in case residents lose power. We're going to have more from Josh Stein and more on the winter weather preparations after a short break. Stay here. All right, welcome back to Live Impact News here on 13 News Now Plus. Again, we are getting a live update from North Carolina Governor Josh Stein as the state and Virginia as well, in addition to North Carolina and much of the country, prepares for this winter weather to come in. This is an ongoing press conference. We're going to get back to him and hear what state officials have to say on how to prepare for this storm.
And so we have worked hard to ensure that we have redundant means of communicating, certainly among emergency personnel. And I will ask Director Ray to come forward and speak more.
Thank you, sir. I think specific to the communications point that the governor was making, and I think to expand on what we talked about yesterday, I think most of the agencies you see up here on the stage, most of the agencies represented in the state EOC or our regional centers and certainly locally have taken lessons learned most recently from Helene or some of the more recent events and invested in some of the redundant satellite-based technologies for redundant communication. We have a variety of redundant communications platforms, whether it's radio caches, mobile towers, mobile data systems that are able to be deployed from a variety of agencies out across the state. Some of the pre-planning, for example, that our 911 community in the state has really been focused on the last couple of years is a failover system so that if a local 911 center in a jurisdiction is impacted, there is a failover plan for an unimpacted area to be able to continue to receive 911 calls. And again, that's the great work that community has done in reaction to many of our events. I think broadly, we always want to take a retrospective look at what we do and how we do it and how we can get better. We've done that for every event, low-level ones or major ones like we've experienced in the last couple of years, and it's certainly one that we will continue to do as we all move through this event.
And just to add, I'll ask Colonel Johnson to come forward. He just briefed me on an investment that the Highway Patrol has done in the Viper network to help ensure its continued functionality even when a tower or two gets knocked out. And the radios. You can talk about radios.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Governor. To that question, so the patrol maintains the state communication system across the state. And one of the investments that I was explaining to the governor is that they have the ability to adjust. So if a tower is impacted by a storm, a tower that's in an area that's not impacted can readjust its microwave system and overlap that area. So the stuff continues to work and it can communicate all our emergency services partners that operate on that system. Then another thing we have, so if you have a local agency has their communication system that's not totally on the Viper state system, we have, Director Ray mentioned it, caches of radios. What that is handheld radios that operate on this state communication system. We have about a little over 3,000 of those. We can deploy those things into those communities and hand them to these agencies so they can operate.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions in the room? If not, we'll go to those who are calling in. If you could please identify yourself and where you're calling from.
Hi, this is Claudia Rivera Coto with Enlace Latino NC. Regarding shelters, what assurance are there in place to ensure Latino communities can access them without being questioned about immigration status or required to show state IDs or even having the information shared with ICE?
Yeah. The shelters are operated locally, and we are in contact with our county management agencies, emergency management agencies. 11 counties have so far declared a state of emergency. Others we expect will do so today. Whether or not a local emergency has been declared, many counties are preparing either shelters or warming stations, and they are welcoming all people to come in. Director, anything to add? Thank you. Any other questions?
As a follow-up to that, there are no written policies that explicitly prevent asking this type of information from the residents?
Can't speak to what the county policies are. Director Ray?
I think, as the governor said, I think our focus here at a state level and the focus of the public safety communities at a local level for an event like this is how do we provide necessary support and services to all North Carolinians. And so they are going to implement those warming stations based on their local operations. And again, their focus is how do we get people safe? So I would reinforce what the governor said is that locally they are making preparations to deal with all people in their communities.
We don't want anyone who is in need of shelter at risk of freezing to death to not seek that help.
We're not seeing any additional questions online.
Thank you all for being here.
All right, once again, getting an update from Governor Josh Stein of North Carolina on the latest storm preps in North Carolina. Just give me 1 second. As they prepare, they have crews from out of state, they have crews from in-state getting ready to go, getting ready for the storm that is headed this way. And I do want to mention once again, they have laid down millions of gallons of brine already in preparation for the storm. Here in Virginia, we've seen the roads. If you see those roads with the dry looking white stripes on them, that is typically the pre-treatment that they use, that brine that helps when the snow begins to fall and when, that icing begins to occur. So again, the greatest concern as far as North Carolina officials are concerned is unsafe travel and then power outages, because ice is going to be a factor both in North Carolina and in Virginia. Once again, if you are located in North Carolina and you need to know what to do, how to prepare, you need to get resources, the website that they passed along is readync.gov. So we'll expect to hear more from North Carolina officials and Virginia officials as this storm gets closer. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to hear from local officials on how you can prepare if you're located in the Hampton Roads area. So stick around. Thanks for sticking with us here on 13 News Now Plus for live impact news. Of course, our noon show is coming up in just a few minutes. But before we get to that, we do want to pass along some reminders of how to prepare your home. We heard earlier from AAA Tidewater and Virginia State Police on preparing your vehicle, but your home, your apartment, wherever you stay is just as important. Our reporter Brianna Fallon has more.
This weekend, snow and ice mix could be a winter weather recipe that keeps you off the roads and stranded in your home.
The ice will make it harder to keep your house warm. The ice is going to make the power lines go down quickly.
Lori Topping Bailey with Quality Home Inspection says it's not too late to prepare yourself ahead of the storm.
People making sure that they have the non-perishable foods, that they have the prescriptions, that they have all of the foods they need for any animals. Make sure you have enough food for days to be able to accommodate in case you can't get out.
Flashlights, bottled water, warm blankets, and a first aid kit are some other essential items Topping Bailey says you should keep handy during the winter weather. But she also says it's important to stormproof your home itself.
And this is what we've done to ensure that our furry family can get outside and use the restroom. So we just peel it back, let them use the restroom, and close it back up.
Sealing your windows and closing your foundation vents are a few ways Topping Bailey says you can keep the heat inside your home. During the winter mix, Topping Bailey says you should also keep your sink cabinets open and let the faucet drip to avoid frozen pipes.
Make sure that the water is dripping, both hot and cold. It's important to drip both sides. Some people think you don't have to do the hot water. You absolutely need to drip both.
Topping Bailey stresses it's important to stock up on essentials and start taking these precautions now, because once the storm begins, she says it could be too late. Brianna Fallon, 13 News Now.
All right, so you heard there a lot of the items that you want to have stocked in your vehicle are similar to what you want to have ready for your home, but of course, additional tips specific to your home, including inspecting the roof, cleaning those gutters, protecting your pipes from freezing, and sealing all those windows and doors so that cold air can't get in. And with the winter storm expected to hit Hampton Roads during the Saturday evening portion, you want to be ready to do this today. You want to do it before it gets really cold overnight and into Saturday morning. So time is certainly ticking to get these preparations done, but hopefully these tips helped you out just a little bit. All right, that's all we have right now for live impact news, but of course we've got 13 News Now at noon coming up, and then later on we've got our 1 to 3 live impact news stream, and we're just gonna have plenty of coverage throughout today and throughout this weekend as this winter storm makes its way in. Again, I'm Marta Berglund here with producer Sarah Calloway. Thank you so much for joining us, and be sure to stay here for 13 News Now at noon.